we're going to use these steps in solving some problems. Our first problem is 20 plus 1 4/10 times 2/10. Now this problem has no parentheses, so we can skip our first step in our rule. It has no exponents, so we can skip the second step in our rule. So our third step says to multiply and divide from left to right. So that means we have to do the multiplication. So since we're going to do the multiplication, I'll write the rest of the problem down as it is. I'll write my 20 and my plus, and then I've got to do my multiplication. Well, remember when you multiply decimals, you imagine at first that the decimal isn't there. So what we're really doing is we're multiplying 14 times 2. If you can multiply 14 times 2 in your head, you just write the answer down. If you need to work it out, we'll come over to the side and work it out. But I know that 14 times 2 is 28, so I'm just going to write my 28 down. Now, after I write the 28 down, I can't forget about my decimal. So remember, we count decimal places. When we multiply, this one is 1, 2 decimal places. So this answer has to have 2 decimal places. So it's 20 plus 0.28. Or we might want to say it's 20 plus 0.28. And now all we have left is adding. So we want to add. And the way you add decimals, you line up your decimals so that you can add whole numbers to whole numbers, tenths to tenths, hundredths to hundredths, and so on. So let's come over here to the side. We want to take 20 and add it to 2,800. So I'm going to put my 0 to line the things up to show that I don't have any whole numbers, and put down my 28. And I'm going to put a decimal behind here, and I could fill in zeros if I wanted to. Got to keep things straight. So I have 8 and 2. We just bring the decimal down, 0 and 2. So our answer is 20.28, or 20 and 28 hundredths. In our second example, we have subtraction, we have division, we have parentheses, and we have an exponent. So this problem will require that we do more steps. So the first thing we want to do is to work inside parentheses, because that's our first rule. Once we get inside the parentheses, then we follow our rules again. So once we got inside these parentheses, we'd want to do this division before we did the subtraction. So what I would do, I take my problem, write it down again, 8 minus, but the division I'm going to do is 4/10 divided by 4. So I need to come over the side and do that. So I'm going to take my 4/10 and divide it by 4. And when I divide, my goal is to make my divisor a whole number. And if you notice, if we're dividing by 4, it's already a whole number. So all we have to do is bring our decimal straight up and say 4 will go into 4 one time. So 4/10 divided by 4 is just 1/10. So I'm going to write down my answer is 0.1. No whole numbers and 1/10. Now, I need to close my parentheses back up and put my square sign back up there. In other words, I want to keep things just as they were, except for the part of the problem I did. Whatever part you did, you replace those numbers by the answer you got. Okay, now I'm still working inside of my parentheses. I'm not finished till I complete the inside of my parentheses. So now I need to subtract. 8 subtract the 1/10. Well, I need to come over to the side and do that. Subtraction is just like adding. We line up our whole numbers and our decimals. So I need to put a decimal here, and then 1/10. So it's 8, subtract the 1/10. And with subtraction, you have to have something to subtract from. So you do have to fill in a 0 here. And since I can't subtract 1 from 0, I borrow from the 8, and that leaves out a 7, and it makes this a 10. 1 from 10 leaves 9. 0 from 7 leaves 7. You always bring your decimal straight down in subtraction, or keep your decimal straight. So I end up with 7.9 as the answer inside of my parentheses. Now I'm ready to move outside of my parentheses, and actually this time all I have left is my square. So that means that 7.9 has to be multiplied by itself, or 7.9 is a factor twice. So let's come down here and multiply 7.9 by 7.9. Now when we multiply, we put the numbers under each other just as if there were no decimal there. So we're just writing down 79 times 79 and then sticking the decimals in. 9 times 9 is 81. Carry our 8. 9 times 7 is 63. And 8 is 71. 7 times 9 is 63. Carry our 6. 7 times 7 is 49. And 6 is 55. I'm going to add that up. 1, 4, 12, carry our 1. 1 and 5 is 6. So I get 6241. And I need to count my decimal places since I'm multiplying. 1 plus 1 is 2. So my answer needs to have 2 decimal places. So my answer is 62.41, or 62 and 41 hundredths. 62 and 41 hundredths. So what I wanted to do as I was working the problem was each time I couldn't do something in my head, come over to the side and work it out and then fill it in. So what we're doing is each time I could put equals here if I wanted to before I went to my next step each time. I'm just moving on down and doing one more thing each time. So after I did this multiplying, I want to write the answer here, the 62 and 41 hundredths. This next example is 2 and 5/10 plus 1 and 3/10 multiplied by the expression 9 and 5/10 subtract 9, and then that expression is squared. So this time we have adding, we have subtraction, we have multiplying, we have parentheses, and we have exponents. So we have a lot of different things in this one problem. So we need to begin with our parentheses. So let's write everything down just as it is. 2.5 plus 1.3. And then we need to do what's inside of our parentheses. So we need to do the 9 and 5/10, subtract the 9. Now you might can just write that answer down, but just in case you can't, I'm going to put them over here to the side. 9 is a whole number, so we need to line it up with the other whole number, keep our decimal straight, and when we subtract, we get 0.5, or 0.5. So our answer inside of our parentheses is 5/10. So we've completed our work inside of our parentheses, and we're now ready to move outside the parentheses. Your second rule for order is to do exponents. So we need to do our 5/10 raised to the second power. Okay, 5/10 to the second power means that 5/10 is going to be multiplied by itself. We multiply 5 times 5, we get 25. And we have to count our decimal places in multiplying, so it'll be 0.25 or 0.25. So we need to fill that in. So we have 2 and 5/10 plus 1 and 3/10 times 25 hundredths.